Hi everyone, I'm making this video because more Fnaf theories or things I wanted to talk about Fnaf and probably William Afton. I forgot to mention in my last video about one of Fnaf's videos involving Fnaf's parents being gone forever. And the video involves the other characters' parents, such as Casey's father, Cam's dad, Cam's father, Noy's mother and sister, and Ian's mother. Ian actually has a mother, which I was wondering about, because she was mentioned a few times, especially when in the Truth or Lie video, when Pierce reveals that he has a crush on Ian's mom, which is weird. But then again, it's probably a reference to Stacy's mom has got it going on. I mean, funny. And apparently, Aaron shows a picture found on Ian's wallet to Afmo about Ian's mother, which is basically just a photo of a mom walking her child in a park that was taken from somewhere on the internet. So it's not really Ian's mother, but it might be. But Ian's mother is actually has full-on appearance in one of Afmo's recent videos, which I was happy about. So, Ian's mother and father, I'm gonna give them names, be Michelle and George. But anyways, so Map had pretty much solved FNAF 6, where the crying child, also known as Golden Freddy, is watching Michael, and Michael runs away from home to go to the crying child's grave, with his little brother's grave, because you know what? Never mind.
Notice the toes. 3 rounded toes. That immediately narrows our field down to Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, Chica, and Golden Freddy. Well, this minigame is called Later That Night, meaning it's happening immediately after William Afton kills Charlie.
Yes.
We know that Charlie's death is Afton's first murder based on Henry's death here.
A wound first inflicted on me, one that I let bleed out.
All of this is happening before any animatronics become possessed. That means the only animatronic it could be at this point is Golden Freddy, the crime child's soul inside of it. And what phrase gets repeated whenever Golden Freddy's around? It's me. A message to a guilty older brother from a dead child that you're still around. The books also have a repeated motif of animatronics waiting outside of people's houses to bring them somewhere. To the afterlife, to the pizzeria, maybe to a gravesite. That's why Michael breaks out of his room to see his dead brother, dressed in a green coat suit, beckoning for him to come along with him to that gravesite again. Recently, I released the second.
So that explains about why Michael ran away from home to see his little brother's grave. I thought Shadow Freddy was watching Michael through the window, but apparently it's Golden Freddy. And besides Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie are just spirits created by the agony and evil by William, but they're not really William's creations. And finally, since Crying Child and Cassidy are both in Golden Freddy, the Crying Child was the first character to die in the series. He was the one that started it all by his Michael pulling a cruel prank on him, which accidentally killed him and caused his father, William Afton, to go down a spiral of grief and anger, and caused him to murder his best friend's daughter out of jealousy and anger, and then murder a bunch of children. And since, Grandchild was the first person to possess Golden Freddy and then Cassidy, it's pretty much obvious that Evan, as Golden Freddy, was watching Michael. Golden Freddy is also somewhat of a ghost, but he's also sort of a real animatronic. Kind of. So, yeah. Sorry. So, the main thing that I wanted to talk about was, is William really a narcissist or a psychopath? Because now that I thought about it, I realized that even though what Not At All, Not Real Name, Not At All explained how William would mostly be a narcissist, especially from his family with the terms like Michael being the scapegoat child, Elizabeth being the golden child, and Evan being the lost child. I thought about it, especially from things that I looked up on Google or other videos. And I realized to myself that maybe William became a narcissist after Evan's death. William Afton was clearly jealous of his friend Henry for having a perfect family while his family was dysfunctional. But then again, William was sort of a hypocrite because he was abusive towards his children. Mostly Michael, because Michael was the first child born out of the Afton family, and considering that William didn't want to be involved in being a father for Michael, mostly because he probably wasn't ready to have children, it's obviously that he was mostly neglected by William. Meanwhile, as for Elizabeth and Evan, William might have still loved them, but even, okay, so after William creates Fredbear, the animatronic, Evan becomes scared because he finds it so creepy. Not because of nightmares, because Fnaf 4 clearly happens, but not to the crying child, but to someone else, either his older brother with nightmares, or to other children via experiments. Later on, which is true in didophobia. So it's pretty obvious that the crying child, also known as Evan, was just afraid of Fredbear. Just Fredbear. And Michael took advantage of it because Michael clearly hated his siblings because William hated Michael because, well, let's just say, William Afton did not want to be a father when Michael was born, so. But he later came around to be a father for Elizabeth and Evan. But as for Michael clearly was not happy about this. So he bullied his youngest brother, Evan. Meanwhile, for Elizabeth, she was adored by William, mostly because she was probably the only daughter that he's ever had. Meanwhile, William also loved Evan. He was barely around for him. In fact, when Michael bullies Evan, William doesn't even notice. It's not like he would really care, but at the same time, he would mostly be busy with work, so he probably wouldn't notice anyway. But would he care? Oh, absolutely. It's not like for someone like William to not care about his child being bullied by his older children. Let me explain. So during 1983, before Evan's death, Evan is left alone in his house with his Fredbear plushie. Michael is supposedly William. William left Michael and Evan alone for Michael to babysit him, but Michael clearly still wants to scare the living bejesus out of his brother, which he does a few times. William, secretly talking through the Fredbear plush, is, well, in my perspective, probably concerned, but at the same time, barely even helping because he's still busy with work and probably not able to fully help his son. So he says, he left without you. He hates you. I'm guessing that William was probably concerned for his youngest son, because most families care about their younger children. Meanwhile, for the older children, they just don't seem to care. Mostly because with parents and children growing up to be a little more older, they just don't seem to care about them anymore. But then again, for some parents, they still baby their older children. So, but for William, he doesn't care about Michael, especially since he didn't want to be a father for Michael anyways. But to a father for his other children, totally. And even though William shuts the doors right in front of Evan, he still tries to talk to Evan. And when Michael bullies his brother some more with his friends and pull a prank on him by shoving him into Fredbear's mouth, Evan dies. And I'm pretty sure, even though William might have knew about this or discovered what was happening, it was too late. Evan died, and William got upset. He ended up being abusive, more neglectful in his life, and just sunk all of his grief into his work. But he was still angry at Michael, and decided to take out his anger on other children, especially his first victim, Charlie, his best friend's daughter. Considering that Midnight Motors takes place after Charlie's demise, it might not be a surprise that the footprints that were watching Michael through the window are probably Golden Freddy's, also known as the animatronic possessed by his youngest brother, Evan. Like I said, William becomes a narcissistic psychopath after the death of the crying child. And during that time, William and his wife also get a divorce. William takes custody of his children, but he clearly doesn't care about them anymore, especially since later in 1986, he builds animatronics to kill children, especially since his daughter Elizabeth gets killed by a circus baby, either on accident or on purpose. But maybe mostly William didn't care about his daughter anymore, so he probably just left him alone, either on accident or on purpose. Regardless. And he decided to do experiments on the children, on other children. Oh, and by the way, so about the fire in Fnaf 3 and Fnaf 6, it turns out Remnant fades away from the fire. So I'm guessing, considering that William Afton becomes Springtrap and then Scraptrap, Remnant fades away from him, so he becomes weaker as more Remnant fades away from his body. Even with Cassie controlling his body. making him suffer.